Good morning, everyone. How would you finish this sentence? And not out loud, but just in your mind. How would you finish this sentence? Hardships are a... Hardships are a... Let's go ahead and we'll look at that in just a moment. We'll review these last couple of months, the last couple of weeks, and we'll unfold the gospel. Has the gospel had an effect in our lives? Before we do that, I have a pressing matter that I have to. Following his acceptance of the letter of resignation of Bishop Michael Bransfield, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, appointed Archbishop William E. Laurie Apostolic Administrator of the Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston while remaining Archbishop of Baltimore. The Holy Father further instructed Archbishop Laurie to conduct an investigation into allegations of sexual harassment of adults against Bishop Bransfield. The Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston is a suffragan diocese in the Metropolitan See of Baltimore. Archbishop Laurie says, "My primary concern is for the care and support of the priests and people of the Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston at this difficult time. I further pledge to conduct a thorough investigation in search of the truth into the troubling allegations against Bishop Bransfield and to work closely with the clergy, religious, and lay leaders of the diocese until the appointment of a new bishop." Archbishop Laurie then went on to say that he would celebrate Mass at the Cathedral of St. Joseph, which he did last evening at 6 p.m. So I did have an opportunity to sit down and speak with Archbishop Laurie related to me being the vocations director. Seems like a very pastoral man, really willing to listen, and I think he's going to be committed and see this investigation through. So again, people have asked me over and over, and I do appreciate all the concern and care that I have been afforded over this last week. So a lot of you have come forward and said, Father, are you discouraged? Are you disheartened? And as I've said, like a mantra since the PA reports and McCarrick and all that kind of stuff, no, I am not. I am not discouraged, nor am I disheartened. Am I angry? Yes, I am. Am I disgusted? Yes. But again, the church was started by a divine person who assumed a human nature and pursued each one of us, each one of you and me, with a personal, passionate, unrelenting love. And he left his presence here, not only in the power of the Holy Spirit, but in a specific way through his church, that it would be the sacrament, the instrument of salvation for the world. And he said, the gates of the netherworld will not prevail against it. And in these times, in the history of the church, when there have been purgations, purges of thoughtlessness, there have always been heroes that have stepped forward, people who maintained their firm foundation in Jesus Christ and followed his call in their life. Remember, there were 11 apostles, and the 11 apostles didn't leave Jesus because of Judas. Think about that. One Judas priest, and we leave. The call is there. The purgation will take a long time. There's no two ways about it. It's pretty bad right now. I'm sure it'll get worse. However, our hope is in Jesus Christ, and we listen to his words. The gates of the netherworld will not prevail against it. And so indeed the purge will continue. 2 weeks ago, we looked at the fact that Jesus was talking to the Pharisees and he says, "Oh, how you give me lip service. But I want lived service." So I ask you, I ask myself, over the last couple of weeks, have I really opened myself to see a lived service of Jesus Christ? Have I allowed myself to be inspired by someone living their faith and moving me forward in mine? After all, that's what motivates. That is what gives witness to the love of Jesus Christ, when we live our witness. So lip service versus lived service. Last week, we heard Jesus say, Ephrathah. That is to say, be opened. Be opened. For that man who could not hear and his tongue was tied. And it's more than that for us. It's not the physical healing, it's the ability to hear the voice of God, to discern what He's asking us to do, and then to answer the call. Psychologically, it comes down to this. Is it isolation versus intimacy? Our hearts are restless until they rest in Thee. They're most at rest and they're most at peace when we hear God's voice in our life. And the way I put it, pray and enter into battle. Because we're so noisy in this day and age that we really have to lean in. We really have to struggle to find a place that's quiet, where we can hear Him. Remember, He speaks in the still, small voice. And there is where we're filled. Otherwise, we're going to experience an isolation. It might be easier identified this way. How do we busy ourselves? Remember, a number of weeks ago we talked about the 7 deadly sins, and which couple of the 7 deadly sins do you lean towards? Do I lean towards? If we're not taking the time to listen to the Lord, to be filled, then we're going to find ourselves wandering. And we're going to go for that particular sin, that particular counterfeit that we want, or that we have a propensity towards. I'm more willing to grasp this counterfeit than others. So, intimacy with the Lord through hearing His voice, or isolation, which is only going to lead me to grasp something that is a counterfeit. Well, back to our question today. Hardships are a pain in the neck. All right. They are a stumbling block to me. Hardships make me feel bad. How about this? Hardships are the pathway to peace. See, I don't know about you, but I really associate with Peter in this gospel. And he runs over and he says, No, the plan is suffering, death, and then I'm going to rise. And I'll bring forth life. And he says, whoa, wait a minute. I don't like your plan. Have you ever said that to God? I have. I don't think your plan's right. This isn't going to work. And he says, get behind me, Satan. Because you are thinking as human beings do, rather than the way God is thinking. Let's take a step back also and look at this, because we're dealing with God's permissive will and His perfect will. His perfect will is He's called you to something. We hear His call. We respond to it, say yes. His permissive will, and the speculative theologians can work with this. Why do bad things happen to good people? It's because of original sin. Was it God's perfect will that we would sin? I don't think so. It certainly is perfect will that He would somehow communicate how deeply you and I are loved. and that this crucifixion was necessary in response to original sin. So again, Peter pulls him aside and he says, "Not this way." And he goes, "No, Peter, this is the way." I mean, what's the glory of God? It's a person fully alive. Every single one of you and I want to live a full life. And Jesus says, life is about love, and love is about laying down your life. You want to lose your life, then seek everything. I want it all. You want to you want to find your life, then you lay it down. Yeah, Father, I know. I kind of heard that before. And well, I had the privilege yesterday of burying a lady named Debbie. She was 62 years old. She died of ALS. And for the last year, she had a trach. So they were breathing for her. As you may or may not know, ALS is a slow death and a difficult one. She had been married for 41 years. So her and Bob, they told me this. He told me the story how they met, and then they went to Pittsburgh, and they were up on one of those rotating restaurants, and he proposed, and she said yes, and she was so excited. She was like, "I just want to get out of here." And so they left, and he gave the biggest tip of his life because he thought he hadn't paid, and he already did, and so he paid again, and they left. And 41 years of absolute bliss. No, a vocation doesn't work that way. There were ups and downs, but it was a gift. They had a child. He was married. She had one grandchild. Debbie was the kind of person where she would take 45 minutes to find just the right card. And I remember saying at the funeral, "Did anybody get a card from Debbie?" They all laughed, because just about anybody there did. I remember being there because it was a former parish, and that's why I was asked to come back by the pastor to do this funeral. And I remember the diagnosis, and yes, there was some of this. And that's normal. And we got to grieve, and we step through the different stages. But there comes a point where you got to choose. Am I going to accept this hardship as the pathway to peace? Am I going to embrace my cross and lay down my life? This is the way. And talk about a lived faith. Debbie did. She wrestled with it, and then her words were, He's in control. I'm not sure that might have been the best words and the most accurate. He is indeed working in His permissive will. Was it God's perfect will that Debbie would have ALS? No. But original sin is in the world, and this is what came to her, and she accepted it, and then she lived. One of the greater stories was her holding her 1-year-old grandchild in bed, with a trach, and she wanted to connect with that child before she left this world. Yeah, it's easy to say, but when you experience someone who looks at that hardship, who looks at our Lord, and realizes this hardship is the pathway to my peace. And I accept it. And with your help, Lord, I walk the way of the cross. And I don't do it begrudgingly, but I do it with joy, because every moment I have now is an opportunity and a gift. Debbie was a masterful investor. Okay. I mean, she invested in the best thing that one can. She invested her time with her family and friends and those that she could help. What a great investor. And oh, the dividends will come. It's hard to invest your best without the solid foundation of your faith in Jesus Christ. So, what's your hardship? What's coming at you in God's permissive will? What is He inviting you to say? Well, I need to accept the things that I cannot change, that I have courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one moment of joy at a time, living one day at a time, and accepting hardships as the pathway to peace.